and welcome to the Tao of Our Understanding Recovery Podcast. In this meeting, a chapter of the Tao Te Ching is discussed every week as to how it relates to recovery. I hope you enjoy this week's podcast episode.
Morning.
Talk to me.
What's that?
Oh, I found a new podcast.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I'm just found it, and I'm about halfway through the first one, but I still I want you to check it out and let me know what you think. It is Sharpening the Mind podcast.
Uh-huh.
I found him.
Sounds painful.
Oh, it is. Well, actually, he does a little meditation, then talks about a study, and his name is Daniel Sharpenberg. He's the co-owner of the website The Tattooed Buddha.
Okay. I don't know any of those things, but
I don't know anything about him other than I read some of his stuff when I was doing a little research for our Thursday Tao meeting on the the useless tree.
yeah.
I stumbled on him from that. He was empowered to teach meditation by the Dharma Winds Zen Sangha. But I like what I've heard so far. He actually does a guided meditation for like 10 or 15 minutes as part of his podcast. And so far, I like what I've heard. I've heard nothing political so far, which is good.
What is it?
Sharpening the Mind is the name of the podcast.
But does he have does he go, does he sharpen it in any particular way?
He starts with a little sharpening meditation. Then he goes into a little discussion of some text.
Okay. It's just any text. He's not just reading through the Tao or
no.
Just whatever.
He's talking about different. Seems like he likes obscure texts and discuss them and apply them to the modern era, maybe. And what he was talking about in this one, I got interrupted and did not get quite finished, but almost finished. He was talking about how the enlightenment that we're looking for, we already have. So, yeah, it was good. It really resonated with me. I liked what I heard.
See, that's the stuff that gets me. It gets me I've heard that idea, that notion. We talked about it last week. It was, that whole thing of what if we already are the way we're supposed to be, that kind of thing. The enlightenment is not an acquired thing. You just realize you have it. And you're like, well, then what? How does, I don't know. It's one of those things where I hear it makes sense, and then I'm like, I don't know if it makes sense anymore. You know what I mean?
I think that maybe we're just blind to what we already have,
Yeah, well, certainly. Then, I don't know.
But it's, I'm going to check out some more of his recording. Hey, what do you think? I'm going to start calling Lao Tzu, because I think it does better with my accent.
Okay.
I don't draw it out as much. What do you think Lao Tzu meant? Wait, hold on. That's not my question. What do you think he would fall on the political spectrum?
Oh, God. See, here you go with this podcast doesn't have politics.
I know, and then I want to talk about politics. I just want to see. I'm just curious to what you would think.
I don't know. I think he was probably an anarchist.
Yeah.
That's my best guess.
Don't you think libertarian?
That's just a form of anarchy.
Yes, it is. I'm thinking from everything I've read, libertarian with a deep concern for the economy. For the environment. With an environmental emphasis.
Yeah, it's hard to say. It's still,
I don't think he would be Republican, nor do I think he would be Democrat. I don't think he'd be either of those.
I mean, that's fair.
Yeah.
I don't know. It is an interesting question because it's wild. It's a little bit, it's a little bit like Christianity, like the ideal would be for everybody to deal with their own stuff. You know what I mean? Like deal with yourself. And what was it you were telling me the other, deal with your own ego. And then once enough of your ego gets out of the way, then all you have left is compassion. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, I mean, either of these guys, Lao Tzu, Jesus, all of it, if you were, I think if you're doing it right, you're, at least making some attempt to get the ego out of the way and make more room for compassion.
Yeah, that's what I really liked from the Joko Beck book that I'm reading with I'm really enjoying my Monday night Zen study. I want to talk to our Tao group, being that's going to continue, about getting Sensei in to talk sometime.
Yeah.
Either about something, about meditation or about emptiness or anything, his perception of a higher power, what that looks like, or lack of, I'm really, he's very open to discussion, which is great. He'll talk about anything, seems to be. So it's really interesting, but he'll start talking about obscure texts that I've never heard of before. He's like a mid-70s hippie from out in California, hippie guy, so he's but he's really great about conversation, very inquisitive, and very, very open-minded, which is really interesting. So
wonder how long that took.
Oh man, who knows? But he starts talking all these Japanese texts that I've never heard. Oh, well, I remembered reading blah, 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 and then, but maybe we can get him in to talk about something. We'll talk about that tomorrow and see what those guys think. But
yeah, sure. I'm down.
But I was getting the Monday night group, Joko Beck, Everyday Zen is what we're reading. And she's had an interesting line from our meeting Monday, talking about being the observer, which, we were talking about, that when you remove the ego, the only things left is to be compassionate, which I thought was really good. And it fits just with what we'd been discussing. But that's a really good book. Have you read that?
No.
Did I give you the PDF? I will.
Well, probably. I think I've got it on a list. Okay. I'll see if I can bump it up the list.
Well, it's really a good one. If you need it again, let me know and I'll send it to you if I have it. I think I've emailed it to you.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Anything particular? I have a new Audible.
Yeah.
I'm really enjoying. It's the 3 Pillars of Zen. I think I mentioned it last week.
Okay.
Man, it is really good. I'm almost halfway through it, and this guy actually went back and after sessions that people would have in their what are the Japanese word? The Japanese for their long week-long sittings, that they would be going before their sensei, talking about enlightenment and what they were seeing in their sittings and all of that, and the koans that they were working on, and what the response of their teacher was about the koans and all of that. This guy recorded them, and that's part of the book, so part of the Audible. So not recorded them physically, recorded them digitally, but he would listen and go and write out what he heard, which was pretty interesting. So lots of stuff to think about in that 3 pillars of Zen, going through the koans and giving a little more understanding of how they're approaching those, which was interesting. But,
check it out.
Where are we? We're on 52?
52.
All right. Loving by returning to the mother.
Whoa.
Hey man, we're watching the 100.
Okay.
Have you ever watched that series? On it's on one of the cable channels, but we're getting it on our online stuff. Like I think it's in Netflix, and then we watch it on Cody too. I'm sorry, that just reminded me. They have this saying, they don't say fuck you, they say float you, right? Because they're in space and they've not lived on Earth. So when they kill people, they float them into space.
Oh, yeah.
So when they came down to whatever planet they're on, when they get mad, they'll say float you. When the people don't know what even that means, they've never been in space, but it makes them mad. It's like their FU is float you, right? So they'll say float you if they get really mad, right? And then we evolved that into float you, mother floater, So it's kind of funny. It's kind of an ongoing cultural thing on the show when now they're out to other planets where they've been in hypersleep, for all this time, right? And so they show up and they start using this float you stuff, and nobody knows but they know it for some. And all these people speak perfect English. I don't understand that either. So it's kind of funny.
Well, shows get really complicated once you have to start translating alien languages.
Yeah, so these people have this alien languages wrote on their face, but yet they speak California English. I don't know, But living by returning to the mother. So that whatever, I've been forced to watch some more of that by my wife. She likes it. So all the good-looking people, I think, is what she enjoys. All beautiful people, no ugly people on this planet. I haven't figured that out. Even the criminals are beautiful. Everyone's beautiful, So
makes for a good TV show.
Yeah, it do. Okay, you want to read? You want me to read? What do you want to do?
Either one. You want? I can start if you want.
Sure, man.
The beginning of the universe is the mother of all things. Knowing the mother, one also knows the sons. Knowing the sons, yet remaining in touch with the mother, brings freedom from the fear of death. Keep your mouth shut, guard the senses, and life is ever full. Open your mouth, always be busy, and life is beyond hope. Seeing the small is insight. Yielding to force is strength. Using the outer light, return to insight, and in this way be saved from harm. This is learning constancy.
Yielding to force is strength. That jumped out to me.
The one that jumped out to me is open your mouth and always be busy.
Yeah, I heard you chuckle. Yeah.
Uh,
In the beginning was the Tao. All things issue from it. All things return to it. To find the origin, trace back the manifestations. When we recognize the children and find the mother, you will be free of sorrow. If you close your mind in judgments and traffic with desires, your heart will be troubled. If you keep your mind from judging and aren't led by the senses, your mind will find peace. Seeing into darkness is clarity. Knowing how to yield is strength. Use your own light and return to the source of light. This is called practicing eternity. That was Mitchell's translation. I want to come back to that judgment thing. I want to look up something else I have from our other talks on judgment. Go ahead. You want to read the next?
Sure. The world had a beginning, which we call the Great Mother. Once we have found the mother, we begin to know what her children should be. When we know we are the mother's child, we begin to guard the qualities of the mother in us. She will protect us from all danger, even if we lose our life. Keep your mouth closed and embrace a simple life, and you will live carefree until the end of your days. If you try to talk your way into a better life, there will be no end to your trouble. To understand the small is called clarity. Knowing how to yield is called strength. To use your inner light for understanding, regardless of the danger, is called depending on the constant.
Everything starts with Tao, the mother of all things. If you know the mother, you know the children. If you know the children and remember the mother, you have nothing to fear in your life. Shut your mouth and keep still, and your life will be full of happiness. If you talk all the time, always doing something, your life will be hopeless. It takes insight to see subtly. It takes strength to yield gently to force. That's a real problem for me, yielding gently to force. Remind me, I have an example of that. Use that strength to hang on to your insight, and you will always be at peace. That's how to get right with the Tao. Use what strength to hang on to insight? The strength of yielding gently? Is that what he's saying?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Okay, I had the guys knock on my door. I didn't prepare to think about talking about this, but it fits, I think, about yielding gently. I do not like being pushed about anything. If I get pushed by a salesperson, I do the absolute opposite. I say, float you and
Sure.
So I am trying to learn not to do that. So when I get pushed, I push back with double the intensity. And I'm trying to learn not to do that. And I gotta have a roof guy that came that wanted to inspect the roof for after a storm, and I do need a roof on my house.
Uh-huh.
So I said, okay. So we set it up, and sure enough, we ended up with about half the cost, or more than half, about 2/3 the cost of a roof. And they're pushing me, pushing. And I told them, I said, hey, quit pushing. I'll be in touch. And it caused this angst. And my wife has said, well, they're just trying to get the job. You know, that's not a negative to her. Most women are intimidated by that, but she's not. I mean, that's how she was raised. She's from Armenia, and man, they push on everything. Everything's a push. I mean, I remember I've been over there several times, and some sales guy with fruit even, and she says, no, I don't want that fruit. I want the fruit you keep behind. I don't want any of this out here. Give me the good stuff. No. And she's just like, rah, 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 and I'm just not that way, even though, I sold stuff for years. I do not like sales. I don't like salespeople. I don't like the push at all. And I want to do the opposite. So they told me that, they tried to push, and it caused this angst. So this learning to yield gently to force is really difficult for me, because I don't want to be taken advantage of, but yet I don't know. There's a lot of elements there I don't understand within me.
Yeah. Well. Yeah. It's. I don't know, man. There is something there for sure, because, like, there's this. There's cultural elements and stuff like this, and like how you were raised and I was raised and all of that. But, when you talk about bringing bringing sales into it, and stuff like that. It's kind of crazy because a lot of this stuff is very counter to, it's, you've got whoever, the guy in the movie that gave you the ABCs of sales, always be closing.
Yes.
That kind of stuff. And it's like, you have to push. That's the whole thing is like, they always tell you got to ask for the sale, and that's never really been my strong suit. But you mentioned not wanting to be taken advantage of,
that's coming from a place of fear.
Yeah.
There's a fear in me of not wanting to get screwed. I'm going to keep the language down too, because when I start getting afraid, I want to start cussing too. It's crazy. My fear brings all those things out, like that's the appropriate thing to do when it's never the appropriate thing to do. It's never appropriate for me to use the F word. Never. There's never a time when that's really an appropriate thing, but I want to do that when I start getting scared. It's crazy.
Yeah. It makes me like in church, they used to talk about, Jesus says to turn the other cheek, right? But then if you're from around here, almost inevitably, the next sentence was, but he doesn't want you to be a doormat.
Yes. That's the other,
And I don't.
So far, you only turn it once,
Yeah.
When that's really not what the teaching was.
Yeah. I don't know how Jesus feels about doormats, but
I don't think he'd want his face on a doormat.
Yeah, I guess not. But it's an interesting way of thinking because, really what you're saying, when you say something like that is like Jesus can be in charge unless I'm going to be taken advantage of, in which case I'm going to be in charge again.
Yeah. And the reality is I don't want to look weak in front of my wife, That's the reality. It goes back to this this vision of me that I want to look good, be the man, and something that ever challenges that is not, yielding gently to force is not strength for me. I have to work at that. What is yielding gently to what does that look like? I still don't even know what that looks like, much less how to do that. It doesn't say yielding to force is strength. It says yielding gently to force. My kids, I've got a cousin that teaches special needs children.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, how do you get them to do what you want them to do? She says, what I would have to do sometimes is stand behind them and take their hands and make them do what I wanted them to do. See, and these are kids that have challenges,
Sure, yeah.
And, but I fit that a lot of times. I feel myself, my hands taken and being made to do what I don't want to do. And I'm like, and she said, once you did that a time or two, they would start doing what they needed to do. You've got to pick this up. You've got to clean up. You've got to do this and that. I don't know if that's the right approach or not, but I could feel that in me as sometimes I felt like that is not yielding gently to force, but it really does take strength to learn to yield gently.
Yeah, it makes, I don't know. I'm not any kind of martial artist nor athletic in any way, but it makes me think about some of the premise of judo or something, you know what I mean? Where the the whole point, like in judo, it's all about like getting the perfect throw. You know what I mean? Like somebody comes at you and you throw them, and like that's a scenario where you're like you as like somebody's coming at you, and then you are essentially redirecting their energy. You know what I mean? You're not like smashing head on. You take their energy, their momentum, and direct it in a different way. And to do that, you're supposed to be like, like you have to be like loose and accommodating. You know what I mean? You have to adjust what you're doing to what they're doing, instead of like, I'm going to, like be bigger and stronger and overpower you. You know what I mean? It's about adjusting to the situation. I don't know.
Mitchell talked about, if you close your mind in judgments and traffic with desires, your heart will be troubled. And I was thinking about a line from, I think it was from Love is Letting Go of Fear. And I've got it in my daily, I've got a daily, I don't look at it daily, but I have a daily list of things that in my meditations that I look at about every 3 days, but it's in my daily list.
Mm-hmm.
One of the phrases I took from that was, today I choose not to distort certain aspects from the past to form a judgment about which I measure other people.
Mm-hmm.
And that reminded me of this idea of closing my mind in judgment, that I don't choose to distort aspects of the past to form judgment. So I form a judgment based on distorted things from the past. Like I judge all of a particular kind of people a certain way because of past. I distort past judgments to make a current judgment, to put them in their box.
Yeah.
Oh, here comes this type of person or this whatever, pick your poison, and, you put these, whatever the particular thing is, in a box, and you do it that way so that you can go ahead and prejudge them, or prejudge how my wife is going to react. A lot of it's my wife, because she's at work today, thank God. That I don't have, but we've got along really well, but for months now, she has been my world. I've been stuck in this house, getting out maybe once a week to ride my motorcycle for a few hours, finishing up some things that she doesn't understand that how important they are to me. And she thinks I need to be making money all the time. And so I'm having to learn how to process that and not feel she's judging a particular way based on prior, stuff. So I'm starting to get stir crazy, I think, is actually a big part of it. I need to get out. I need to see a beach. My meditations help. Man, if it was not for my meditation, I think I could see how people could go back to drink. Anyone who's not familiar with this podcast, we're all in recovery, and it's on certain levels. And so, for me, it's alcohol, and I've been in recovery for a number of years, but I could see how someone could want to escape in this closed world. It's almost like a prison of some type, you're stuck.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting you bring up meditation, because I think that this little segment right here, if you close your mind in judgments and traffic with desires, your heart will be troubled. If you keep your mind from judging and aren't led by the senses, your heart will find peace. This is a really good description of meditation. You know what I mean? That's the whole exercise, is like, not judging, you know what I mean? Like having a thought and then not judging it, and because if you can do, if you can do that with, you're talking about, like being, judgmental towards other people. If you can do that for yourself, you can certainly do it for other people. At least for me. I mean, there's nobody that I'm more judgmental of than myself.
I had an interesting thing from this Pillars of Zen. I've started going to the park and running again, trying to lose my Corona 10 that I've gained.
And if I kept it to 10, I would be doing good.
I'm back to 8, I think 7 or 8 anyway. I'm back running again. Love to run, and so I'm back running my 2 miles, or walking and running.
Yeah,
I'm riding to the park to run. They opened the park back up last week, so I'm out riding, and someone comes up behind me. I'm in my Jeep, so I'm not really speeding. I'm not in a hurry to get anywhere, so someone is, and they're riding my ass, along, and I'm like, and I realized something. I looked at it a different way. I looked at it like, I am riding close to me, like they are me.
Yeah.
And I got that from listening to this Cohen stuff, and we're all one, and it reminded me of that, which I occasionally get a glimpse of. I'm like, wow, I am riding really close to me, aren't I?
Yeah.
I had a moment of Zen,
Yeah.
And I was like, And as I sat there and thought about it, they backed off, which it may have happened anyway, who knows, but it happened. It was at the right moment for me to see that, because I do that too. I'll ride up close to somebody and say, oh, I'm riding too close, and I'll back off. Is that a moment too of Zen of like, I don't know, but I realized it was me. So any anger that I would, because before I have slammed on my brakes and gotten pissy, all that stuff, where I can go if I'm not careful. Because I've noticed this heightened level of anger under the surface, which I used to have all the time. I've noticed that coming back, and I don't like it, and I thought, alcohol really is a symptom. This anger really is a symptom of a lack of surrender, a lack of acceptance. I don't think I'm the only one that is having to deal with some of these recurring things from me thinking I am more surrendered than I really am,
Well, so then if you realize that it's, that there's a lack of acceptance, that's then the tricky part is figuring out, what is it that you're not accepting,
Oh,
that's
not accepting everything as being the way it should be. I'm wanting to fight.
Right. Sure. Yeah.
I feel the sides closing in, and I want to push,
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess, like for me, sometimes I don't have a good example off the top of my head, but like, if you can, like you have that feeling of like, okay, you feel yourself starting to push back, fight, like, okay, there's something here, and so like, that it's okay, there's something that I'm not accepting. There's something I have a lack of acceptance about. And you can tell yourself, okay, well, I just need to accept everything, and everything is as it should be, and that's good. And if that's all you have, there's certainly nothing wrong with that. But sometimes if you can name specifically the thing that it is you're not that you're pushing back against, it'll dissipate quicker. I think.
It reminds me of, I remember when I had pancreatitis, almost died when I was fighting alcohol, before I learned to let go, and I was fighting. Oh, I just had major surgery, and the nurse told me that I needed to calm down, and I didn't realize I needed to calm down until she told me that I needed to calm down. Then I was angrier.
Yeah.
I was in such pain, and she said, just calm down. And I'm like, wait a minute, I didn't realize I was angry. Now I really am angry. I can feel the walls closing in even more, It's that kind of a feeling sometimes of just, oh yeah, I need to I really need to calm down, And so I don't know. It's just, I tell you what I did. I called a friend in recovery because I didn't feel comfortable calling my sponsor because we're on kind of different sides on this COVID thing. And so I don't know. I just didn't feel comfortable calling him in that moment for whatever reason. But I did reach out to someone in recovery that I could discuss this with. I think that's why it's good to have multiple people that we can talk to, multiple friends, we can't keep our secrets, will kill us, so I had to reach out to someone that I felt comfortable reaching out to and say, hey, there's something going on here. Because I just, I gotta get this out. So I'm going through like a mini 4-step with someone in recovery on this. So yeah, you're right, Zach. You've got to work through it. And mine comes back to this fear of the same fears. They're the same ones every time. Fear of failure, fear of financial insecurity, fear of not being, fear of being a failure in the eyes of my wife. All those things, those normal fears that I have the same 3 or 4 fears all the time in some form, I'm thinking, will I ever surrender these entirely? I don't know. It all comes back to the same ones. But I felt lighter once I started identifying and actually I sent a text about it this morning to this person that's helping me with it, that's been around, it's got a lot of time. I said, I got some work done on this last night and early this morning. I think the anger is just a symptom of a lack of overall surrender. Fear of failure, fear of being wrong, fear of financial. My level of surrender that I thought was at 60% is really maybe 30 or less.
It does seem like, if you're able to, to pay attention, which is the whole meditation thing, you translate that to real life, it does seem like, the more you pay attention, it's sometimes stuff just keeps coming to the surface. You know what I mean? Like all of the little things that are things that we think we're worried about, turns out that was, just like a stand-in for a deeper fear that we didn't know we were worried about. And then you address that deeper fear that you didn't know you were worried about. And sometimes, there's stuff buried under that too. You know what I mean?
It's peeling that onion, isn't it?
Yeah, it just keeps going, I reckon. I don't know.
That's yielding, learning to yield gently to this. It's really all about yielding, The action in this is yielding. It's not, anything else. In this whole, if you tell me if you see something different, but in this whole 52nd chapter, our work, so to speak, it works if you work it. Well, our work in this is yielding, knowing how to yield, not being led by our senses, yielding, keep our mind from judging, yielding, keep your mouth closed and embrace the simple life, yield, just shut up and pay the man.
This is the second to last line there. Knowing how to yield is strength.
Yeah. Bob Mumford, a Bible teacher that I used to listen to a lot that helped lead me in this direction. One of his sayings was just shut up and pay the man. Yeah. Another thing he used to say, which was interesting, was taking a lap around the mountain. That's how he interpreted the whole Moses and the children of Israel deal. was, they had a chance to go in the promised land before the wilderness. I don't know if you remember the story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they had a chance to go in, but they were full of fear. So they had to go around the promised land for 40 years for that generation to die out. And there were some priests and, I forget the guy that, Joshua and someone else that survived. And then they got to go back in the promised land again because they weren't, I think they said in the beginning we could take it, and everybody else said, no, we can't. Was it Caleb? I don't remember. It's been years since I've looked at that. But Bob says it's talking about taking a lap, and you take a lap around the mountain, and their lap was 40 years, and they came back to the same place with the same situation.
Yeah.
And were they going to yield this time? Now, I think it's the same thing here. We take a lap, we suffer, and are we going to yield? Are we going to keep our mouth shut and guard our senses? And life is ever full.
But those were all you kind of wonder, because like they were all dead. You know what I mean? Like, so it wasn't like, okay, like take a deep breath and are we going to do it this time? It was just, it was all new people. They didn't have the same hangups as the old people.
Yeah, they had to get rid of the unbelief. They had to get rid of the, it sounds like from the story, the gist of the story for me was they had to remove the judgment. And the way to remove the judgment was they had to remove the people because the people weren't able. And that whole time, for the 40 years, God provided for them on a daily basis with manna is the story. And it's interesting how they were learning to stay in the moment with that. And if they saved the manna for the next day, it would ruin, other than the days they were supposed to save it. So it was kind of interesting how all that worked. But it was a daily provision they were taken care of, but they had to eventually die out to where they could come back again and say, okay, are you gonna trust this time, or are you gonna judge and not trust? Same kind of thing. Learning how to yield. Anything else in that? I don't have my star marked up, but we didn't look at. Does Wayne Dyer have anything to say on that? Good. I don't know.
We can look at it if you want.
Let's see. We got 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes, if you have it. 52.
Which one do you look at?
Keeping flexible is called strength. Your existence is a return trip to a place where all the planet's creation emerge. He wants you to realize that you have the ability to enjoy this mysterious beginning before your physical ending. This is from Wayne Dyer's Change Your Thoughts, 52nd chapter. I got Kingdom of God wrote beside that. The kingdom of God's not meat and drink, but righteousness, peace, and joy in the Holy Spirit. So it's that peace and joy that comes from yielding. It's vital that you spend a few moments each day getting to know your eternal mother, which you can do by simply acknowledging her presence and silently communicating with her. Your eternal mother's one and only voice is silence. Back to, like you picked up on that in the other translations, the meditation part, right?
Yeah. So here's Mitchell's commentary on 52, which it's kind of interesting because I was just thinking like we focus more on towards the end of the verse than the beginning.
Yeah.
But so this is the whole commentary is on the phrase trace back the manifestations. His commentary is, where do you come from? But that's it. Where do you come from? But I think it kind of gets at the towards that second little part up there, define the origin, trace back the manifestations.
Yeah.
When you recognize the children and find the mother, you will be free of sorrow. But like the other all of the other translations mention that, like the mother and children, and so it gets it talks like it keeps saying things, it references like knowing the children. So like you can know the mother through the children. You know what I mean? It's just an interesting thought.
So how do we apply that? What's the application of that?
Who really knows? But I mean, if you want to like think about it in terms of recovery or whatever, I mean, you've got to start where you're at. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like people want to. It's good if you can deal with the root of everything. You know what I mean? If you can find, the cause, the ultimate cause and the ultimate effect, and if you can find, like we were talking about earlier, peeling back the onion. If you can get to the middle of, if you can just jump into the middle of the onion, that's good for you. You know what I mean? But I think most of the times you have to actually peel the onion. You have to do the layers one at a time. That's the only way they come off. They don't. You go the children have parents, and parents have parents. And if you go back far enough, you get to the beginning, or whether that's Adam and Eve or a monkey or an explosion. I don't know. That's beyond my pay grade. But
or seeing that your anger is from a fear of the future.
Yeah, or anxiety about the past, or whatever, whatever it is that you're stuck on. But
is that not the same thing? Seeing the manifestations, is that not part of the same deal?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and that's how meditation works. You know what I mean? You're dealing with the thought that you have. That's the only thought that you can address is the one you're having. Yeah. You can't address the one you haven't had yet.
Yeah. Huh. How about go ahead. I'm sorry.
It feels like, in a sense, it's leading you back to this like present moment kind of thing,
And back to doing less. Listen to this. This is from the Star translation, which is where Wayne Dyer got a lot of his stuff. Stay with the mother, shut the mouth, close the gates, and you are never in trouble. Very little effort involved there in working harder, doing better, right? Stay with the mother, shut the mouth, close the gates. Abandon the mother, open the mouth, be busy with others, and you're beyond all hope of rescue. So the exertion, the over effort puts you in danger. Huh. Yeah. Knowing how to yield, right?
Yeah.
Seeing your own smallness is called insight. Honoring your own tenderness is called strength. The sun in all its glory reveals but a passing world. Only the inner light illuminates eternity. Only that light can guide us back home. Have faith. Follow your own shining. Follow your own shining. Be aware of your own awareness. On the darkest night, you will not stumble. On the brightest days, you will not blink. This is called the practice of eternal light. I'm on the right chapter, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, is that the same chapter? Yeah. Seeing your own smallness is called insight. Yielding gently to force. Man, that goes back to the surrender, doesn't it? The openness, the emptiness, the idea that we are one, that there is no offense. There's nothing to forgive.
Mm-hmm.
I hurt you, I hurt me. Hurting people hurt other people. That whole thing, In reality, there's no offense. There's nothing to forgive. Neither is there anything to prove. There's nothing to lose. There's nothing to gain. Man, that's good. How do we do that? Back to that doing again, right? How about how do we surrender that? Maybe a better way to say it. How do we yield to that? Maybe approaching the situation rather than thinking I have it figured out, I have to protect, I have to defend, I have to resist. Maybe we approach it with openness and kindness and how can I love? How can I be instead of how can I prove? How can I help you instead of how can I defend? Yeah, maybe approaching from that view instead of the view of force, push, prove, defend. So force, push, prove, defend come from love, help, openness, kindness. That's strong. How many times have I approached a situation and just been busy doing things because I had no idea the right thing to do instead of just waiting until I could see, or being open to the situation instead of just slapping it around.
Yeah.
Well, you see your kids approach things like that, fussing about things that don't matter, arguing for no reason, right?
Oh, man. Sure.
I remember my kids doing that. I remember me doing that. I still can do it. I mean, my wife says, is this really that important? I'm like,
yeah,
no, it's not. You're right.
Yeah, man.
I remember when my son was little, he asked me, he said, he was like 4 or 5, maybe. And he did something wrong. And I told him if he did that again, I was going to have to spank him. I spanked him when he was little spanks, nothing big. And I said, Max, you did that. Now I've got to spank you. He said, I know. He put his head in his hands, little bitty, Daddy. I said, what? He said, why do I keep doing what I shouldn't do? And I laughed. I said, I don't know, son, but when you figure that out, let me know. Because I'm right there with you,
Yeah.
That whole proving things that don't need proving, doing, fighting because I can fight, It really is freedom from me, not freedom to be me. It's freedom from having to be me.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
You see anything else in that?
I don't know. I'm sure there's something.
Oh man, there's a million things.
10,000 things. That's all.
Everything. Hey, I have on our Thursday meeting. Are you going to be able to make the Thursday Dow meeting?
I'm going to try to.
Okay. I got a suggestion. What do you think about this? I know we're going to be studying. I'm going to call them Chauncey instead of Chauncey. We're studying Chauncey and going through that Merton book. It looks like a lot of things there for the to discuss, getting ready to discuss his poems, his writings. What if we took like that first writing of The Useless Tree and we asked everyone just to print off a copy of it at home and meditate on it and read it every day, and then we read it the next week and study the actual, after looking at it for a week, and then next week, whatever the next one is, do the same thing and ask everyone to read it every day and make any notes of what they see in it, kind of meditate on it for a week and see what, if anything, pops out. I just thought that might be a good approach, because this isn't like we have 10 translations and can, everyone has different, we don't have as much material on this. It might be a good opportunity to start listening from within for some insight. I don't know. What do you think of that approach?
Yeah, it could be. I've read through his book. I think of, well, from what I've looked at, like I don't know, I can't say it, but the Chauncey writings, Merton's version is, well, they don't really call it it's not a true translation. You know what I mean? Like he's not coming from directly from the original language. He's compiling several English translations, but I do think his is probably one of the most accessible versions of it that there is, as far as ease of reading, accessibility, that sort of thing. But so even his, like some of the stories, I was like, man, that is good stuff. You know what I mean? Like it kind of hits you. And some of them, I'm like, you just flip on over to the next page. You're like, what is happening?
Yeah, well, that's like with the useless tree, the one we're talking about tomorrow. And the more I read all of the first chapter, there was a lot of things to talk about in that first chapter. I don't know if we'll even be through that first chapter before tomorrow. I think we've got plenty to talk about in just the chapter before we get to the story, the first story. And then that first story, I'm thinking, maybe if we took a week on just that story and just meditated on it and left some room, maybe we could see more in it than what I'm really seeing at the moment. I'm seeing a few things, but if I took it and meditated on it for a week, maybe we would start, if we all did that, maybe we would start seeing more out of that one story. I don't know. I just wanted to try it with this first story and see if that worked. Because there's a lot there in that story about, the tree being so crooked, and how the example of that in our life, that the real use may be something totally different than what we've placed value on, like the value of gold being really money, the value of the tree really being how it can be cut down and used, that kind of a thing. What other value is it there that we're not seeing? That kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't get that from the way I researched these other chapters in the Tao Te Ching, let's say. I got that from just sitting and meditating on it, like a different approach.
Yeah.
I don't know. I thought I would just throw that out to the group and see if they wanted to try that with this little different approach than just showing up and reading it and studying it a little bit, and things popping out. Maybe a meditative approach to these instead. I don't know. Let's see if it works. I just kind of thought that my inner light was leading me in that direction.
Well, sure, yeah.
I want to talk the 52nd chapter on it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. There's certainly a lot that you can gain from studying it, but sometimes some of the more like, some of the stuff that really hits you is just like, without trying to fill your head with a lot of background information, like just taking it at almost at face value, I'm not saying one approach is better than another. I'm just saying,
I think it's better really when we do move, and it takes me several days of emptying about something rather than the first look. A lot of times I'm not open to those things,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I would like to see if it doesn't work. Maybe it works with Chomso. Okay. I don't know. Maybe that's a better approach to these things than how, we've approached in the, who knows, we can see if it works.
Yeah.
I'm excited about our recording tomorrow. Anything else on this or anything else we need to talk about?
I don't think so.
You still working a couple of days a week? Is that what
you're doing? Yeah.
Second verse, same as the first?
Yeah, we'll see how it goes.
When's it?
I don't know. In the mid-July.
Okay, so you got another 6 weeks or so. Did she go full term with the girls?
Yeah, plus some.
Okay. Yeah, my mother carried me an extra month. They said I was the ugliest baby that ever was born. My grandmother was afraid to touch me. I was so ugly and frail. I was feeling like a snake. It just was awful. I was ugly. You don't want a 10 months.
Good thing you grew out of that, huh?
Yeah, for real. Now I'm not designed for TV. I'm more the podcast version. But, yeah, that's tough. Well, that's good. That's good. So she's healthy. Everything going well. Y'all didn't find out the sex, did you? Or y'all
No,
not disclosing that?
no, we really don't know.
Really don't know. Y'all did that with the other two, right? Didn't you?
Well, we did that with the first one, and we found out with the second one. But in my experience doing it with the first one, man, it is you get people like riled up about that kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like, it's hard for people to accept. Like why would you not know something that you could know? You know,
That's interesting.
I don't know.
So how about a lot of expectations with that? You know? A lot of people put their own expectations on the gender of their children.
Yeah,
we found out on both of with my first wife. We found out on both of ours, and I have no children with my second wife. So, but,
yeah. I mean, I don't know that there's a right or wrong way to do it, but you know, it was just for us, it was mostly about, you know, trying not. I say mostly. Some part of it maybe was just trying to, you know, keep our own expectations of what, you know, who this person should be or could be in check. You know, like they'll be whoever they are when they're, you know, when they're ready for it. They don't, you know, they don't need me, you know, explaining to them who they are, who they're supposed to be before they're even born. They also don't need all of their grandparents filling their non-existent room with stuff that they don't need and have room for.
you know, I guess that helps when you don't know the gender, because then you kind of wait to buy things, don't you? You don't buy as much stuff beforehand.
Yeah. I mean, we've got plenty of stuff, you know what I mean? And, you know, God bless them. People want to help and I'm all for it. But, you know, people say they want to help, but it's really, if you're a grandmother, there is nothing more satisfying than like buying baby clothes. You know what I mean?
You got all the leftovers from the girls too.
Yeah.
And the little stuff is pretty much gender neutral, you know?
Yeah. I'm not like, I really am not, I don't know. I don't feel like I have a strong stance on it. Like there are people that are like, you know, like I'm determined to raise this baby genderless, and I don't necessarily subscribe to that camp. But at the same time, you know, I do kind of feel some like, you know, there's a lot of expectations that people put on kids, you know, with based on nothing other than just their gender, you know what I mean? Or sex. I don't know what the appropriate term everybody's using nowadays, but
I don't know if how you treat the kids have much to do with it. Really, my kids were very gender specific on their own. I didn't have to guide them in any direction. I mean, there was no guiding. They had their own, you know, inward push for those things. I remember my son when he was like 4 or 5, sitting in front of the TV, playing with his toys. And I remember a Victoria's Secrets commercial coming on, him stopping what he was doing and staring at stopping everything, staring at the TV for the whole commercial. And then as soon as the commercial was off, he went back to playing with whatever he was playing with. And other commercials come on and he didn't pay attention to them that way. But man, that commercial with lingerie come on and he just stopped and just stared at the TV.
Yeah, how old was he?
4.
Yeah, he's probably hungry.
You know, I mean, we hadn't guided him in that direction at all, you know. It's just, me and my wife, we'd look at each other and laugh, you know, because we knew what was coming because he did that every time, you know. not knowing why, not asking questions, just knowing that that's what he was interested in, and, I just was, okay, and it's interesting. My daughter was very athletic, and she was much tougher than my son as far as like toughness goes.
Yeah.
I mean, like they wanted to check I was diabetic and they wanted to check their blood, and my daughter, she said, I want to prick my finger. And my son said, I don't want to do that, but, he did it, but it hurt, but my daughter, I could prick her finger and she just look at it, not flinch at all.
Yeah.
And she was very tough, much tougher than he was, something that you would think of as a masculine kind of trait, But she was much tougher. But it's kind of interesting how they evolved on their own without any, help from me. They needed me to guide them.
Yeah. I mean, I think that it's just, I don't know that there's really a right way or wrong way to do it or to be or whatever, but it is interesting. Like I've heard people talk about and read stories of like, like young, like babies, in the hospital, when they're just born, you know what I mean? And, and so they'll, as soon as they're born, like almost instantly, like the girls are wrapped in pink and the boys are wrapped in blue, except for now they have that little toboggan thing that's red and that's pink and blue. But what happens is, there was, so I was listening to this lady, she was telling a story about her, her daughter was born and she wouldn't tell anybody the sex. And, which, like I'm not that like extreme about it, but you can kind of see where she was coming from, because like her daughter got sick, when she was like, I don't know, she had some kind of thing, and they're saying that like you could notice, you would note like differences between like when they were in NICU, they would notice differences between like the way people would talk to girls than the way they would talk to boys. You know what I mean? Like they would talk, like they would talk to girls like, oh, you're so sweet and innocent and delicate, and you know what I mean? And like they would talk to boys like you've got this, you can do it, you're gonna make it, you know what I mean? And it was like this positive, like
like the girl had to be taken care of and the boy was tougher kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that you're, if you don't, like, I think that whole like neutral thing is just silliness. You know what I mean?
I think we have a lot less influence than what we think we do. I think it's genetically within us to be what we're going to be. Now, granted, if there was abuse and that kind of thing, that may be different. But I just don't. I don't think my dressing my kids a particular way or my talking to them when they were really little may have not had that much really to do with it. I don't. Looking at them now at 21 and 24.
Yeah.
I don't think that, maybe it had more to do with it than I think, but I let them just come along as they came along, and they're who they are. I just don't see where it had that much to do with it. Could have been, I don't know,
Well, I mean, who really knows, honestly? Yeah. But I mean, I
don't think pink clothes or blue clothes is going to make a difference when they're a year old,
No, but I mean, it does kind of get into like young kids. They have a strong desire to like label, and this is not different from adults necessarily. We just do it about different stuff, but like there's a strong desire to label things and put things in the correct category. And this is this and that is that, and everything needs to be very clearly defined. You know what I mean? and so and so they learn things like, okay, well, girls have long hair, and I'm like, my daughters have told me that, you know what I mean? Girls have long hair. I'm like, I have long hair. Am I? And they're like, well, you know what I mean? And they're like, I don't know.
But I think it could mean a big difference showing your kids love. We showed our kids a lot of love when they were little, a lot of acceptance, a lot of love, a lot of, when they were really little, there was a lot of that. But I was a disciplinarian too. But, there were, I remember the first house we moved out of, we used the corner for discipline a lot. And there was like brown marks on the corner where their nose went. And you could see as they got older that it got lighter and lighter because they had to stand in the corner less. There was one age where they were in the corner a lot. It was like a dark corner, where their nose was in the corner all the time. And I used the corner a lot, but maybe I was a little too disciplinarian with my kids. Looking back, I could have, if I had another set, which me and my second wife wanted, but it just wasn't possible. I would have been a lot more easygoing, I think, with the kids than what I was. I thought everything had to be a lesson with my first set, but the second set, I think I would have a lot less lessons than I had with the first set. I'd been a lot more lax. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I certainly don't have it figured out, but I guess my sort of guiding thought is to, if there's any such thing as, whatever is the thing that's the most of them that they're able to be, I would prefer they be them than just little me's as much as possible.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I don't think it's my job anymore. At first I thought my job was to train my kids, but I think really my job's to love them,
Yeah. Well, I guess that's really the best you can do, I mean, like I keep telling my wife, she's like, they're going to end up in therapy. And I'm like, everybody should end up in therapy, like
they might end up drunks too. I mean, who knows,
We're like, the best you can do is accept that they're going to be in therapy and, save them some money to pay for it, I guess.
Have you introduced your kids to meditation at all?
I'm
meditating. Do they know if you're like, do they come in and find you meditating, or do you, I know they're little, but I would think that if I had another set, I would want to introduce them to meditation young, just like I introduced them to prayer and church and other stuff when they were kids.
I have tried some things. You really have to, and I've tried a few different approaches, but I also try not to be like, I don't want it to be like you want them to want to do it.
Have you tried to meditate before they go to sleep kind of thing? Like we used to do prayer before sleep. Y'all may do that. I don't know what y'all do, what practices. I'm just curious. Not that I think.
Yeah, well, we do actually use, like when they use Headspace a lot.
Yeah.
They have some like I forget what they call it, like sleep casts or something, but it's they do we call it stories. He's got like it's essentially like he tells a story, or they tell a story, whoever's doing the narration, but it's like, it's very not it's supposed to be the kind of story that's like just boring enough to make you go to sleep. You know what I mean? Like excited enough that you're not anxious, but boring enough that it doesn't keep you awake, but so he does these stories, and before the story starts, he does what they call wind down, which is a lot of like basic, meditation techniques. And
Does
stuff.
he do that for children's? Is it like a children's thing?
It's not specifically. Yeah, he does have some children's exercises, okay, but they're not. these work well because they're sleep oriented, whereas the specifically children ones are not as sleep oriented. And so but yeah, I mean, they do like you can like they'll lay down and you'll hear them like doing like deep breaths and stuff.
Oh, really?
Like
That's cool. And they're how old?
5 and almost 7.
Oh, yeah. That's good. I don't know if I had little ones again, I would want to introduce them to some of that. I don't know. That's interesting. I'd be curious to know how that continues, if that's something that seems to help. It got to help calm them down and get them ready for sleep, just like stories and all the other things that I'm sure you do.
Yes, it's been pretty effective. I mean, I always get nervous to say like this is the thing that works. You know what I mean? Because I don't want to like jinx myself, because it seems like almost as soon as you like pin something down to this is how it works, then they automatically will be like, nope, that's not going to work. But so far, like it's gotten pretty. When they were younger, like they had to have somebody with them to go to sleep, and now I can kind of tuck them in, and usually I can, get them tucked in and start the story, and they'll, go to sleep on their own. So
they sleep in the same room, don't they?
Yeah.
Huh. Well, good, man. Good. Anything else?
I don't think so.
We kind of run over today, but that's good. Well, if that's it, my friend, I'll catch you next week. Hopefully see you tomorrow.
All right, man.
All right, later. I wanted to make you aware of several recovery-related resources that are posted in the episode description. These resources include a list of recovery podcasts, a free sober meditation app, daily recovery emails, and a couple of shared Google recovery calendars, one with a daily thought and the other with a Course in Miracles lesson every day. All these resources are free. I hope you're able to put some of them to use, and have a great week.
Thank you for listening to the Tao of Our Understanding Recovery Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please share this podcast with your friends in recovery.